Hello, the initiated. My name is Markus, Junnikkala, and this is the Be a Better Artist podcast. Today, I want to talk about sensitivity. Now, I've talked about sensitivity a lot before, and I believe that creative people are fundamentally different in terms of their sensitivity compared to your average, so to speak, person. And because of this sensitivity, right from your physiological foundation, from that level upwards, because your sensitivity is amped up, hyped up, you're going to be picking up a lot more information from the outside world. You're getting in all this sensory information. And also, sensitivity is not only the sensory information, it's also how you abstract that information and piece it together. So you might be sensitive to this abstract pattern recognition, seeing patterns in a society, seeing patterns in people's behavior, psychology. You're detecting things that other people might not see, or that other people initially disregard or don't pay attention to. It's not that creative people necessarily see things that other people don't. It's that their focus and sensitivity to these repeating patterns, they're so high that it's impossible to consistently try and not pay attention to that. That's why a lot of artists can be so apparently obsessive. Now, in this video, I want to talk about how creative people perceive this sensitivity in themselves. Because from my experience, this sensitivity is primarily seen as a negative. And this is a classic pattern, really. I mean, we artists get no recognition until we break through, until we create something that is truly of great value. And that's very understandable that that's how it goes. I mean, that's very logical. And because it's so difficult to leverage this strength, which I ultimately believe it is, people, artists, creatives perceive it primarily to be a negative. And until it does reap something positive, it can be a bit of a curse. It can be a bit of a burden because it taxes your system a lot and you don't see a lot of actual benefit in the outside practical world. So it's no wonder that creatives, artists, sensitive individuals begin to see it as a negative. And in this video, I want to violently attack that idea, that perception of this trait, because I believe it to be a superpower. But it's a superpower that you need to leverage appropriately. You need to harness its power and then put it to the right work. And actually, I don't believe its benefits to be limited to creative work alone. I think that sensitivity can be leveraged in all areas of your life. And at the core of today's episode is the concept that every single quality in you, every single trait in you is a double-edged sword. Some of those qualities lend themselves well in one environment. They might lend themselves well in, so to speak, normal day-to-day life, in a more sort of typical modern life path. And some of them lend themselves better in more obscure, more rare situations. And our tendency to judge these qualities and these traits simply as positive or negative is it's not a very high resolution image of the reality. Our tendency to look at this issue in a binary fashion is not allowing us to leverage our strengths. It's not allowing us to mitigate our weaknesses. When we look at our traits and our qualities in this binary fashion, we're looking for the easy way out. We're looking to write off our weaknesses in the simplest fashion so that we get an easy way out. We get an easy excuse to not leverage these traits and qualities that ultimately could serve great purposes, but maybe the path to getting there is not easy. It's very complex, it's very challenging, and therefore we just want to write it off as something that is a negative, although we clearly know that there are many strengths, many perks to many of our abilities and traits and qualities. Sensitivity is definitely a gateway trait, a gateway quality. And what I mean by that is that, yes, on its own, it doesn't provide you much useful leverage. But what it does provide you is information, provides you with intel, provides you with a bigger picture of something, provides you with context. Sensitivity allows you to see more by receiving more information. Now, before you can take that information and turn it into something useful, you need to turn that information into pattern recognition. It's true that it's not much use to be extremely sensitive if all you allow it to do is overwhelm you. And that's what will happen if you don't have a way of taking in that information in a controlled fashion, and then actually cataloging that information in the right way so that you have these different pools that you can draw from, and then you can begin to do this pattern recognition, putting together these pieces of information to confirm whether something is true or is not true. I was a very sensitive kid, not surprisingly. And for me, what mostly ended up happening is all this information would be coming to me and I would be extremely overwhelmed by just about everything. And it was not only the sensitivity to, sound, light, and all of the things that were happening, but primarily I was sensitive to the patterns I was recognizing in people's behavior. May that be on an individual level, individual basis, or a societal level. I would constantly be overwhelmed by all of these patterns I was recognizing, all of this behavior that I didn't have a way to contextualize, didn't have a use for it. I didn't know what to do with it. And I think that was largely because I didn't really have many ways of applying myself in the real world. Now, if I did have some sort of a mission, if I knew what I wanted to do, things probably would have been very, very different, because I could have taken that information and leveraged that somehow in my own life. You need an aim, you need a focus, you need something that allows you to put those qualities and traits to work. And I'm not confident that there's a single area in reality and life where you can't leverage sensitivity. If you have a skill that allows you to gather more information, gather more intel, there's no way that skill, that trait is going to be useless. In fact, I believe it to be the ultimate superpower. If you compare it to someone who is not sensitive at all, there's constantly information coming at them, flooding to them, screaming at them, but they might not be picking that up because they lack that sensitivity to the outside information. Now, on the upside, again, we talked about double-edged swords. That person might be extremely focused. They might be extremely forward driven because they're not picking up all of this so-called noise, all of this information coming at them, which makes it very easy to keep moving forward, keep working on whatever they're working on, because they're not taking in these so-called distractions, which is what often that noise, that information can be. Focus and momentum can be very easy for them to achieve because less and less distractions, informations are getting inside. So they can be like a freight train and move forward and just grind and go. But the other edge of the sword is that there might be a lot of really important pieces of information screaming at them, like, why aren't you seeing this? Why are you not paying attention to this? And this could be professionally, this could be personal life, personal development. In every single area of their life, they're going to be less open to receiving and also piecing together these pieces of information. And it will undoubtedly cause issues to these people. Now, your problem is the opposite way around. You need to find ways to filter out the noise, because there is a lot of noise. And the noise is noise in the sense that it's not useful for you right now. You can't leverage that information right at this moment. It's impossible to filter out the noise if you don't have an aim, if you don't have a focus, because that aim and focus serves as the filter. When you have that focus, you at least roughly now know what you should be paying attention to and what not. And the things you should be paying attention to serve you on your journey towards this aim, towards this focus. Because when you lack an aim, when you lack that focus, you're going to take in all of this information as if it mattered. You're going to take all of the information as important. And it's not. Not everything is important specifically to you. And fundamentally, this is why sensitive people get so overwhelmed, because they don't know how to filter out the information, the noise that does not matter. And again, I don't mean doesn't matter in an absolute objective sense. Every piece of information has its time and place and worth, but we human beings can primarily do one thing at a time. I believe that to be true in the micro, in the here and now moment, certainly, but also in the more macro picture, we are so much more effective in a really truthful and deep and effective sense when we have a specific task we can focus on. And it doesn't mean that's going to be the only task you're going to do. Of course, you can do many, many things in life, but we need focus. We need that restriction so that we can really sharpen our eyes, our brain, our mind on one thing to do it impeccably well. So if you're one of those people who see their sensitivity as nothing but a hindrance, nothing but a negative thing that overwhelms you and drags you down, then I invite you to ask yourself, do I have an outlet for this? And I believe sensitive people to be one of the most underutilized groups of people in our society, because it is very difficult for them to find ways to make use of it. Because as it stands, the way our society is built, of course, there is a focus for things that can be instantly leveraged, and also things that can produce positive and beneficial outcomes in the social sphere. And of course, there's a ton of other skills that come into play, but those are skill sets. Everyone has to learn those in one shape or the form. That's a topic for a different time. But as I said, this is a gateway quality, a gateway trait. It's not going to do everything for you. No quality, no trait does everything for you. There are always plenty of skills that we need to learn so that we can really leverage these more fundamental temperamental qualities and traits. But if you can figure out how to filter the noise, make sense of the information that you're getting by getting a focus, getting an aim, having a clear outlet for all of this pattern recognition and all of this information that you're receiving, if you try that out, it will absolutely change your life. And it's one of the greatest things that you can leverage in your own temperament, in your own personality. It's a superpower of a quality, of a trait. You just need to put it to use and stop being aimless and chaotic about your sensitivity. So I hope that helps. It has certainly helped me. I know a ton of successful people that have said the same thing. I don't know them personally, I just study them. And the key to this is something that I mentioned in the previous episode. We need to find ways to consistently and fundamentally change our approach to our challenges from a negative perspective to a positive one, because there are plenty of positive ways of looking at every single quality in your temperament. We just tend to lean towards the negative first and foremost because we're afraid of those vulnerabilities. And obviously, from an evolutionary standpoint, the negative reactions are the ones we respond to the fastest and the most in the most intense way, because we're concerned about our survival, not only in the wild, the wilderness, but also in our social group, our social standing. If you struggle to find a way to view this challenge as a positive, I don't think you have a realistic shot at really tackling this problem, because as long as you're dominantly focusing on the negative outcomes of your personality trait or quality, you don't have the opening that you need to explore and leverage the positive. You need to be fundamentally willing to be open to your past and see the situations where the sensitivity brought upon a positive outcome. For example, if you are a musician, if you are an artist of any kind, I think it's impossible that your sensitivity hasn't been useful and beneficial in that area. Now, of course, you might not be a successful musician or an artist, which might make you say, well, what's the use, because it hasn't, produced any money or fame or success. But on the other hand, you might be in the beginning stages of your artistic or musical career. So you shouldn't judge the fundamental temperamental quality or trait based on the current outcomes that are present in your life. You might just be missing a bunch of other skills or executions. I know it's very difficult. I know it's hard. I haven't managed to leverage my sensitivity to its full extent, but what I have managed to do is orient myself appropriately and effectively at sensitivity as a quality. I at least now know what the perks are, what the benefits are. I see the effects of that every single day because it allows me to hear things in music that a lot of people don't see. As I've studied things like marketing, advertising, content creation, these sort of things, it has allowed me to make tremendous pattern recognition happen. And I think it has played a tremendous part in allowing me to create this type of content. A large part of this is, first of all, seeing and recognizing things happening in the world and then bringing it together. And from there, I can speak about those patterns to you in ways that are hopefully accessible and useful. Remember that every single quality in your personality, every single trait you have, has its place in time. It might not be apparent to you right now, might be that it's actually breeding a lot of difficulty and struggle in your life, but you have to realize that that might be because you don't have an appropriate outlet for that trait. I hope that helps. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Finished.